Hey, and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. Today's special guest is Dr. Schermer Sellers. I am so excited to have this conversation. If you know me by now, you know I love taboo topics. And today we're diving into one of those, sex. But we're also diving into family dynamics and communication. Dr. Schermer Sellers has decades of experience when it comes to shame, sexual health, and communicating with families. As a marriage and family therapist, as well as a doctorate in clinical sexology, we're going to learn so much today. She's an author, she's an educator, she's a speaker, and she is leaving a legacy where you feel comfortable to heal your own sexual identity, what your legacy was growing up, to be able to be that person that you wish you had, having an open conversation to your children or maybe nieces and nephews or whoever in your community that you're helping raise. So stick with us today because this is a very important topic. Remember, what we keep in the dark stays in the dark, but what we bring to the light, that's where we're going to find growth. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited about our chat. You're going to be one of the first conversations we have about a lot of these topics we're diving into today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jessica. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm going to pass it to you if you'd like to introduce yourself, and we'll jump into our conversation.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Dr. Schermer Sellers. I am a retired professor. I taught in marriage and family therapy and family medicine. My specializations are in religious sexual shame. And now I do work also supporting clinicians around the country who have gone on to get training in psychedelic-assisted therapy and the healing of trauma, since trauma is a real part of being an American right now. So we really want to support people who are out there really trying to do good work and help people heal from the hard stuff that they've had to face and go through in their life. So my life is kind of centered around that. I'm an author. I have 2 best-selling books. The first one took 11 years to write. It's called Sex, God, and the Conservative Church, Erasing Shame from Sexual Intimacy. And the second one is called Shameless Parenting, Everything You Need to Raise Shame-Free, Confident Kids and Heal Your Shame Too. So really around helping people get a sense of liberation and see how desperately valuable they are just by being who they are. And then from there, how to heal that shame and then how to not accidentally keep it going by reactions from our past and our childhood that we end up passing on to other people. So it really holds people's hands, kind of like birth to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, all the way up to 18, really tries to help you know, here's what your kiddos are going to likely do. And here's what they're going to be interested in. Here's what body interests they're going to have. So that might be hard, and just helping people prepare and then helping them know what to give their kids. And then we give the top resources like books and websites for parents and caregivers and just people that are trying to heal themselves, what to do, because there's a lot of things that kiddos do, like find their genitals, that just freak parents out. And because their parents and grandparents they didn't know what to do with them. And that's where they got their shame or a piece of their shame. And so I really try to help prepare them and help them heal what's in themselves. And then this, just know this is what your kiddo needs at this point, or at 14, this is what they need. They don't need, but they need this, and so anyway, those are the 2 books that I wrote, and I'm very grateful they're out there in the world supporting people who are wanting to do it better and heal and have a different legacy.
I love that so much because I think that's something that, like you mentioned, religion and different cultures and how we view things, and I'm a firm believer if we don't talk about it, we're keeping it in the dark. Mm-hmm. And that's not good for anybody. So I love that you have this resource and this guide to really explain and help people, because parenting is hard. Mm-hmm. I was a step parent, and there was definitely, when it came time for the sex talk, it was like, well, I'm the step mom. There's some different viewpoints and boundaries, and our relationship looks a lot different
Mm-hmm.
So how can I still navigate through trying to have this conversation, right? Without it being awkward for both of us involved, which I think that is it, right? It's awkward and uncomfortable for everyone.
Well, and it is. And that often has to do with the shame, right? Because we didn't have people do it well for us, often. And so then we're in a position and we're like, I kind of don't know what to do. I don't want to do it wrong. I don't want to do too much. But what's hilarious to me, and actually so common, I speak about this around the globe, but a lot in the US. And I would say 95% of people who have grown up in the US have grown up in homes that are silent or silent and shaming around bodies and sexuality and anything related to that. So their default inside their own body is like, I don't know what to do, right? And so lots of people have, if they didn't have silence, if they had a talk, they can tell you how awkward it was and how difficult it was. Well, we don't learn things, important things like relational things. Sexuality is a relational component of our lives. We don't learn things by one talk. There isn't anything that we give someone one talk. We're going to have one talk on manners. We're going to have one talk on health. We would never do that. But with sexuality, which really includes relationship intelligence and emotional intelligence, we're trying to do that in one talk that's often too long and too late, right, for the kiddo. And so that's really part of what this book is like, if you didn't get that, I'll often say to people, if you didn't get that and you want to know how to heal, take yourself through that book and imagine that you're speaking to the 2-year-old in you, or the 4-year-old, or the 6-year-old, or the 8-year-old, because you're going to feel inside your body, wow, it would have been incredible to have somebody read that little book to me when I was 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever. Like, you're going to feel parts of you feel loved. Because your people they loved you, but they just didn't know how to do it, right? And because no one had done it for them. And we have a long, long history in the US of not privileging comprehensive sex and relationship and emotional education. But especially the last 45 years, it's actually been more quote unquote, I'll say religious. Actually, abstinence education, which rolled out in the 80s and really peaked in the early 90s, that was religious education. We know that now. And we were funding it with public money, right? And so things have gotten crazy since then, and they put it under the guise of religion, although it really doesn't have anything to do with core values that are inside of our religions, like core Christian values. We're not seeing that anywhere, really. And so it's really been confusing for people. But what I love is there's so many people your age and a little older even that are like waking up to it. They're like, I do not want to do to my kids or my nieces and nephews, or even to myself, what was done to me. I am going to heal this. I'm going to see myself as valuable, and I'm going to learn a different legacy because I'm not going to pass this on. And I love hearing that and seeing that in people. And I realize it takes so much courage and tenacity to do that kind of healing. But man, what a gift to give yourself and everyone that you love, really.
Yeah. When I think of abstinence, I'm like, that's great, maybe in theory or like thought or something, but let's be realistic. Like, that's not, because at the same time, we're teaching something completely different. I think that abstinence, in my mind, we always use religion. Like, every religion has been used and manipulated for different causes at some point. So I think like we use it like in the name of religion, but it's really out of fear.
It is.
Preach abstinence. It's out of fear.
It's out of fear and ignorance. And overarching, I think that fear and ignorance is a desire to have power over and to control, right? It's a power and control. It's a patriarchal move. It's a power and control move. And it's been that from the very beginning. When Christianity, for example, became an empire religion, in other words, Constantine, the emperor in the 4th century, he was basically the government. He said, we're going to be a Christian, people. And they made it with these laws and rules that were really all about power and control. It was about patriarchy. And we see that in most of the major fundamental religions around the world. They really are about controlling people and leaving the people in power, even if they're hurting people. And it fits the course, and we see it here too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that I love your thought of when you go back, and we always want better for our kids, whatever that looks like to us. We want to let them have more experiences, or, give them a better quality, or whatever we didn't get, we want to make it better somehow. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a really good thing for people to focus on. Like, this is a big thing that we can make better for our youth. I used to say in my own work that, I don't focus on youth and suicide prevention. Like, I focus on veterans and service members or families. And like, that's kind of my niche area. But then I realized, I'm like, but also our youth is growing up, and they're going to be adults, and they could be service members, they could be veterans. So I kind of widened it up a little bit and thought, like, oh my gosh, like, this is really being able to focus on the adults, but also the youth. So I love that you've tied that in. You have this book that, hey, read this. It's going to help you, and then ultimately help give the better life for your children. Or as you mentioned, like nieces and nephews, because that's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, because one of the things we don't talk about it. And so we don't often think about it, but and that is really like how important it is that we focus for our kids on things that can secure their self-esteem, their ability to do relationships really well, to be able to love well, give love well, receive love well, all of those things. We don't talk about that as important. We're more worried about, well, what preschool are they going to get into? What college are they going to get to? What job are they going to have? Are they going to make, but we know we have enough research that shows that, in fact, there's this 85-year study at Harvard called the Happiness Study, and they've been doing this longevity study looking at what creates people's sense of joy, of happiness, and longevity, and it has everything to do with the strength and health of your closest relationships. Well, what are the skills we need to do relationships well? First, we have to know ourselves well, and we have to appreciate ourselves, like love ourselves, see ourselves as valuable, because I only love other people as well as I love myself. That's my limit, right? So if I think I'm full of, what, then underneath it all, I'll end up doing that to other people, even when I don't mean to. I mean, it's just what happens, right? So first I have to feel good about who I am. I often say humans are radically valuable and radically imperfect. We need to embrace that about ourselves, right? Like I am valuable. I just came out that way. And I always have things I'm working on. And that doesn't make me bad. That makes me a growing human, right? And so we don't shame ourselves for having areas that we're working on. We just see that as being human. After that, or in addition to that, we're going to be teaching kids from the earliest age how you deal with conflict, how you say what you mean, how you're honest. What does kindness look like? What does kindness feel like, right? And we teach these skills, these relational skills and these emotional skills, like, honey, I see that you're angry and I get it. But we don't talk to each other that way in our family. So I want you to go back out the door and come back in, and we're going to take two. And I want you to use different language that I know you have, right? And so we invite kids to rise up and have more emotional intelligence and relational intelligence. That is going to secure their happiness and their health and wellness more than anything else, provided that they have a place to sleep and they have enough food, and right. But beyond that, really, it's that. And yet, as a country, we focus on acquisition. We focus on products are more important than people. And we have been doing that for now since 1980, since Reagan got into office, and we passed a bunch of laws that privileged corporations. We've been doing that, and it's trickled down to now that's what families worry about, right? They're working so hard and they're thinking, how can I help my kid be better? And their kids don't see parents loving each other. They don't see parents being kind to each other. They don't see relationships. And so inside their head, they go to school. And we know this from research too. They go to school like they have a white noise machine on, and that white noise machine is their worry machine, right? Because mom and dad were screaming at each other, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, whatever. I mean, they were screaming, I don't know if they're okay. And I'm 5, 8, 10, 15, 20, right? Kids need to see love. They need to see the things we're inviting them to do. They need to see kindness. They need to see apology. They need to see repair. They need to see conflict doing well. This is all what is actually going to help them have a secure life, pick a good partner if they decide to partner, have fun, do joy, have priorities that make sense, that actually build up their lives. It all is an intrapersonal skill set. And we're one of the countries that does zero towards that.
I think that comes to what we prioritize and what we value. And like you said, it's pushed at us in different directions. And as you're talking about this, it just makes me think of, getting your kid into like the best school, the best opportunities. But what's really going to set them up is, like you said, those relationship skills. I think I'm a firm believer that communication is the greatest downfall of any society, but it can be the greatest success if we're willing to do it. But there's so many people that, I don't know, I like to say they don't know how to communicate. And then I take a step back and I'm like, okay, they don't communicate in a way that I find effective. Maybe I'm giving like a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, but you're right. We don't spend time on that.
No. Yeah. You are so right. And what goes into good communication? What interpersonal and intrapersonal skills do I need to have in order to communicate well?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just not a snap. It's not a thing. It's a whole tool skill set. Right? It's like, I know how to listen. That's communication, right? I have to know how to listen. I have to notice what I think I understand and what I don't, and ask questions, right? That's communication, right? Somebody comes from a different background, a different life experience than I am. Each word isn't going to mean the same thing. I mean, what they say when they use this word, grocery store, I don't know, I might think this and they think this. So often I'm having to ask for clarification. I have to be secure enough to say, I'm not sure that I understand. Can you give me an example of what you mean by that? I want to make sure that I understand you. We have to feel secure enough in ourselves to even say that, right? So there's a lot that goes into good communication. And I think, kind of like you're saying, I think kids need to see it modeled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm imagining cooking. And I think you can microwave something, and that's a form of cooking, or using a skillet versus a cast iron skillet. Those are very different things.
Yes,
right. I think we just undervalue communication skills too much, and that
I agree.
We think that having conversations are so hard that sometimes, I'm the kind of person, like, I would much rather talk in person, talk over the phone, like talk in some form before like sending an email or sending a text message. I think it just gets so misunderstood and people overthink things. And it's like, I put a period in the wrong spot. Like, what? Like, no, that's definitely not what I meant at all. And we don't value that. Now we're in this like super quick, always on the move. Let me just send a quick text message, or let me just send an email real quick, instead of actually connecting with people and having the conversation. I think that that's something that if we're not taking time to do that as an adult to an adult, we're definitely not taking time to do that for our kids. And that's not helping long term.
Right.
One of the things I heard once was, we accept the love we think we deserve. And I loved how you were talking about, modeling when a kid goes to school, whatever they saw at home is still in the back of their mind. But then that kind of builds what their anticipation is about a relationship and what they think about a relationship.
Sure. It's what's been modeled for them. Absolutely. Yeah. I taught in a graduate program for almost 30 years, and I taught marriage and family therapy and sexuality and sex therapy and medical family therapy and whatnot. And we used to have these small groups once a week, and we'd have them kind of through the year. And at one point I remember, I don't even know how it came up, but we got talking about what these are kids that were 25 to 35 on average, like, what did you guys see growing up? Did you see a marriage? Did you feel secure about your parents? And I couldn't believe it, because I just kept hearing over and over again, I never saw my parents touch each other. I never saw them hug. Mm-hmm. I never saw them hold hands. I never saw them do something for just themselves. They came to my games. They came to my teacher conferences, but yeah, I didn't see it. And then I think, so you don't know if you can have it. That's the best it gets for you, right? And again, we're not privileging that. People go to work and there is some permission to think about doing things for your kids, or I'm taking this trip with my family or whatever. But I mean, how many people feel free to say, I'm taking a day for me and my partner because we need a day. We need a day together. And there's a boss standing there saying, I'm glad you're doing that because you're better for us when you do that. Right? This never happens really, but you can say, my kid is sick and I need to go do this or whatever, but we have no support for the actual family relationship or the marriage or primary relationship. If there's a primary relationship, anybody that's been in a primary relationship knows that it takes effort and work. And it's always asking you to what I say is grow up, show up, and shape up. Mm. And that's what primary relationships and parenting ask of you all the time. Well, that's hard work, and especially if our default from our childhood isn't super strong, then we don't have a lot that's there. And we got to put effort into it if we want it to be better for us. But I wish there was more support for people in that and for their homes and for their kiddos, because it would make our relationships stronger, which is the foundation. Our marriage is stronger, and then our kids stronger, and then our neighborhoods and communities stronger. And boy, if we don't need that right now, I don't know what we need. Yeah,
the strengthening the family dynamics, that was something I'll say. Out of all the things I'm blessed with, my parents are absolutely amazing in so many different ways. But I remember growing up and thinking, oh, like they're so gross, So yeah. I had my parents that were overly loving, and I'll never forget. It was like my 15th birthday, and we were out to dinner, and it was just me and my parents. I don't know where my brothers were, but something about like, I said, you don't have to get me anything for my birthday. Just don't make out while we're at the restaurant. Like, that's all I ask for. Like, none of that. And then of course, my dad's gonna be like, "Wow, come here, sexy mama," and all this. Like, ouch. But then that was like that my whole life. So my dad was deployed, practically lived in Saudi Arabia, so like kind of in and out. But anytime my parents were in the same room together, they were grabby, they were hands on, they were loving. And I was like, well, but I go to a friend's house. And you're kind of tying into some of your conversation, right, things you brought about religion. And I go over there and it felt so uncomfortable because she was like, don't touch me in front of the children, like no PDA, right? Or if she came out, she was, my mom would like be sipping her coffee in a robe and there ain't nothing underneath that robe.
Yeah, sure.
But her mom would be like in full length, like long pajamas and the robe, like very covered up. And I just was like, this is weird. Right. Yeah. So I grew up in the very touchy-feely family.
Yeah, loving family.
Like, would you rather him hit me? And I'm like, no, I just rather no physical contact. But then just being in my friend's home.
Yeah.
And just visiting, I was like, oh, this is weird. This is. So it's interesting. Like when I grow up and I get into a relationship, my love language is physical touch. And I'm like, well, probably know where that came from.
Well, and it also could just be you too, but at least you were shown permission. You were shown permission to hold hands, sit close, snuggle up, get a hug. You were shown that is normal. Mm-hmm. And so if that is your love language, you're not fighting with yourself, because it's like, oh, I can see the path. If you're a physical person and you grew up in a family that was not, that way, and maybe there were things like, you're just so needy and you're just so this, Then when you notice that within yourself, you can hear this inner critic going off, right? Because you don't see the pathway, because that's a beautiful part. I remember we have 4 kids, and one of them, one of our younger ones, who's now 35, when she was probably like 14, 15 in there. And, she was somebody that came and snuggled in bed and held my hand. And I said to her, I want you to notice that you're a physical person, that touch feels really comforting to you. And when you start dating, if anybody criticizes you for that, the thing I want you to hear inside yourself is, that's not my kind of person. Because the last thing you need is to be with somebody who can't celebrate how loving you are and how much touch feels good to you. But there's tons of people out there that have been shamed for being touched, and I could just, she was tender, and I could just imagine hitting some of those walls. And I just wanted to preempt it. Like, if you get that, this is what you do. You run. It's not your person. Your person is going to be like, I feel so lucky to be with you, because you're that way.
I love that so much. And I think that's really valuable for people to hear. And I'm a firm, like, I love the love languages. I think it's very important, and learning like what works best for my friend and how to keep them engaged and motivated. And we have a friend who everyone will know, like, when they hear this, who I'm talking about. Like, she cannot, do not hug her, do not touch her. She's like, gross, don't talk to me, you're not friends. So I was like, I will break down these walls. And now we have a whole group of people that anytime they see her, we're like, hey, we do a big group hug. And she's like, you can almost see now, it's so cool, because she's almost like melting into it. She's like, okay,
Yeah.
She's accepting it. And a few times she's initiated a hug, and I'm like, oh, this is the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I have an 8-year-old and 5-year-old granddaughters. When my oldest one was probably 4, she had gotten a book from the library called Don't Hug Doug. And it was this story about this little boy who just didn't like hugs. They weren't comfortable to him, except for he wanted one hug every day at nighttime, at bedtime, from his mom. And she was the only one. And I remember saying, we're all different. Some of us love hugs, and some of us are like, meh, and a whole lot of other things in life, it's fine however you are, but there are lots of people, maybe like your friend, who have a part of them that really wants to feel affection in that way. And so with their permission, you can kind of break into it a little bit.
I definitely think that's something is learning and growing too. And we talked about this a little bit with communication and the difference. So my husband was always a quality time person. It took me a bit to really figure out, like, okay, he's a little bit of everything. He's a great gift giver, but I'm like, how does he really receive love? How does he feel my love for him? And I was like, oh, quality time. But our definitions of quality time are very different.
Yeah.
So that's something too, is being willing and open to have those conversations.
Yes.
My husband was like, what's it matter? And I was like, well, it does. It just does. Like, how are you feeling my love? Like, he's not a physical touch person, because on the couch, I scoot over real close to him and he's like, you're really close to me. Why are you this close to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So finding those ways and then communicating when you're not feeling the love. I think that's also a really hard thing to do too, is when you're feeling disconnected and being able to express you're feeling disconnected.
Yeah.
And maybe that also ties into what we're talking about with that shame piece, right? Is if I'm feeling disconnected and I'm not feeling loved in this moment, what's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or, I don't want to make this person feel bad because of how I'm feeling, rather than it just has a conversation.
Right.
Where's this stemming from? And is it something that we can work towards together?
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
Letting people know. I think that's important too, is letting people know when something that you need, that it's not being met for you. Not necessarily the person may not be doing it, but maybe it's something that you're needing and the other person can help as well. And that's really any relationship. Like I said, going back to friends, seeing what helps friends the most as well.
Right, right. I think one of the things you're hitting at here is what we sometimes call attachment, and you were saying disconnect, so when we feel securely attached to our person, like I feel good with, then I can handle little ripples, I can handle a sarcastic comment. I can handle because I feel connected, right? But when I start to feel disconnected, I can get a little more reactive, like my feelings get hurt more, like taps into my pain a little bit more. And that's where it's really important to say, I'm noticing I'm not feeling as connected as I want to feel with you. Can we talk about that? When you were talking about love languages, I actually, I had a clinical practice and I still do supervision with people, clinical supervision across the country every week. I remember there were things I liked about love languages and there were things I didn't like because it's just can be so nuanced, like you're saying, with your husband, it could be so nuanced, like what he thinks is quality time and what you think are quality time isn't just quality time, right? And so I developed an exercise for couples to do. And I would say, okay, everybody's getting a piece of paper. You're going to fold it in half. Top half, you're going to write 1 through 5. Bottom half, you're going to write 1 through 5. In the top half, you're going to write the things I do to or for my partner when I want them to feel my love. The bottom one is the things my partner does that for me feel like love from them. Feels like love, like washing my car. I don't know. But so you sit and you think about those things, right? Like when I'm wanting to say I love you without saying I love you, what are the things I do? And then I kind of write them down or what are the things they do that just feel like love to me when they do them? Again, not just words, but things, actions, right? Actions that land. So you write those down. Then you sit and compare them. And you won't have it right. Right meaning you won't match, but it's a beautiful thing because, your partner will say, oh, you mean when you cook for me, you're like loving me. And I haven't been appreciating it that way. But now that I know that, I'm going to pay better attention. So when you cook, I'm going to say thank you because I know your heart was in that to me. So even though that's not something that normally would land for me, like it's not on my bottom list, I know your heart was in it. So I'm going to acknowledge that. And then sort of on that bottom list, it's like, oh, these are the things that land for them, that land my love for them. There might not be anything on there that was on my list, but now I know, oh, when I go fill up your car, it feels really loving to you. I can do that. That's no skin off my back. I can put that on my schedule, whatever. So I find that exercise to land more specifically for the couple than love languages does.
And that's a great piece because it's opening up the communication and understanding of things too. Mm-hmm. So I love that you bring that up as well, because it is kind of funny when you think about, I do this thing that I think is so great and that they love. So I intentionally continue to do this thing. And they're like, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wait, so this whole time, okay, so this kind of makes me think of an accidental favorite holiday. My husband always made a big deal out of Halloween. Always did. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like went out, would build a whole extended porch. So it was like this haunted walkway the kids had to walk through, and he always involved his son, made this big deal of it. So when my husband got ill and he was bedridden, I recreated his haunted hallway, but like in our hallway. So when home health or physical therapy, like when anybody was coming to see him, nurses, whatever, they had to go through the spooky hallway to get to him. And I was like, he's going to love this. He's going to think it's so fun. And he seemed to enjoy it. So then the next year we got him out of bed. He's on the couch. Okay, I'm going to try and decorate for Halloween for him. So I put in all this energy and effort and all this money to do all this Halloween stuff. To come to find out, he actually doesn't like Halloween. So he was only ever doing it for his son. And his son was only pretending he liked it because he too thought his dad loved it. So here we all are. And closets of Halloween stuff that now that we're moving, I'm like, I'm not moving any of this because Halloween's not my favorite holiday.
Right. Yeah.
It's so funny that, so I think of like, there's the little things that we do. And here's this like big thing that has gone on for years that now it's almost freeing to find out like,
Yes.
he never actually liked Halloween. So now his son and I sit back and we laugh about it because we're like, all these years, we thought that he loved Halloween.
Oh, but it does speak to love. When your husband was doing it, when his son was younger, that was an act of love, even if it wasn't landing. You know what I mean? Again, we do things because we want to say I love you, and our partner's doing that too. But do we know? Do we understand so that we can appreciate the extensions of love or act in ways that do land? So,
yeah. And it's something I think at this point we will forever talk about, forever laugh about. And when our son has his own family, I'm curious, like, will he too, like, want to go out for Halloween for them? It's entertaining, but I think that's such a great, like, I want to say simple, but it's not simple to have to sit down and actually think about it and write it and take the time and then have a conversation and share the list. Like, it's scary, but
it can be vulnerable. Yeah, it can be vulnerable and take courage. But like we were talking at the beginning, that's all about building interpersonal and intrapersonal skills, which matter in the long run. It matters in our life and our quality of life. When we're 85 or however old we get to be, and we look back, it's going to be that thread that matters. I worked in oncology for a decade, and that's what patients taught me. So much was their relationships is what they cared about, not what they accomplished or what they had acquired. That did not register at that point at all. And so people who had invested in their relationships and felt really good about them, they were filled with much more joy and peace in the midst of recognizing their illness. The people that had been following what power and control in the business world, out in the culture had been saying, acquiring stuff, getting more, they felt empty. They felt regret, and that is the hardest thing to see in somebody where they feel like they don't have a lot of time to listen to their regret. And of course you do listen to it, but boy, it taught me something really important.
I love that you brought up that you were working in oncology, because this kind of ties back into our conversation about sexual shame. I remember when we were at the neuro-oncology, we had to go to a different department, and I can't quite remember exactly why. We only really had one appointment there, but in that department was also housed the mental health support. And I remember seeing a pamphlet about your sex life and cancer.
Yes.
And I thought, well, that's really interesting. And some of the stuff in there, it had talked specifically about like women having cancer of like ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, those kind of things, a direct affecting reproduction and sexual activity. So I'm reading this and I'm like, this is really interesting. Like, this is not why we're here, but I thought, no one's brought this up, how this affects everything. Like, this is really interesting. And the fact that I didn't see that flyer to this day, that's the only time I ever saw it was in this little waiting room of this office where we had one appointment.
I know. So you're bringing up an incredibly important point, and one that, I've spent my whole career straddling medicine and marriage and family therapy. So in other words, medical family therapy, straddling the two, training physicians and therapists, worked in oncology. And it took me a while to recognize that this isn't brought up. Sexuality isn't brought up by most therapists, by most doctors. I'm speaking at the end of the month at the University of Washington Men's Health Summit for urology, right? Because erectile dysfunction doesn't just affect your erectile function, it affects your relationship, your sense of self, all of it. But none of the doctors, educators, therapists, nobody gets training in sexual health.
Yeah.
So think about what I was saying at the beginning. If we don't have it in our childhood and adolescence, and if we decide to be a healer and we go to grad school and they teach us whatever is in that silo, psychology, primary care, oncology, whatever, we're still not talking about the interrelationship. And one of the things that I will say to doctors and therapists all the time, in fact, I get on a high horse about it. I'm like, every patient that walks in your door as a human, they are bio, a body, psycho, an emotion, right? Emotions, social, relationships, sexual, use their bodies to connect and share pleasure with somebody they care about, right? And spiritual, connected around things they don't understand. You know, there's some existential questions that organize their life in some way or another, or they have thoughts about, right? Every human, bio, psychosocial, sexual, spiritual. Doctors get training in the bio. Psychologists get training in the psycho. Marriage and family therapists in the psychosocial. Nobody in the sexual, nobody in the spiritual, unless they go on and do a further certification. And it's part of what is both frustrating for patients, because it's on their shoulders, and why doctors and et cetera don't bring it up. I used to give so many talks on sexuality and cancer to patients, to patient organizations, and to physician organizations around this kind of stuff. And I'd be like, you guys, I know you're not going to go back to school, but let me show you how you create a team. So how you connect with people in your community who can step in and help with, and you guys put a team around these people that are suffering in all of these areas. And then they're not alone trying to manage it all on their own, right? Already overwhelmed by the illness and all that stuff. But I would be wealthy if I got a dime for every time I've heard what you just said from people who have seen different kinds of healers. Doesn't matter what kind.
Yeah. And I think I loved how you broke that down too, to me, that's how I envision that's real whole health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our healthcare systems are not built for that.
No.
Systems are failing people. People are working within the system and they're trying to do good.
No, and they can't. And that's how I'm actually starting this talk. I'm like, so what do? We being practitioners, what do we do when our training and our healthcare system doesn't allow for us, doesn't provide a system for us to treat the whole person, which is the problem every healer is in, and not only that, now we're making it almost impossible to have your healthcare or to be able to afford your healthcare or whatever. And it's so inhumane. It's so inhumane, and it hurts us in ways that we don't recognize. I mean, it hurts us financially as a country. It hurts us behaviorally. It hurts us relationally. It hurts us in every area. We could flip that. We could take the 30 billion that are being spent on ICE right now or whatever. We could put that just into our healthcare, cover everybody's healthcare expenses and their whatever. And now you've got people who feel secure. I'll be cared for, and my children will be cared for. My community will be cared for. I don't have to worry about going into bankruptcy. Now I'm more free to think about, how do I live my life in a way that serves my family and my community? And I mean, it immediately starts helping every area of our social structure, our society structure. I mean, there's no way to make any sense about why we would put together systems that are going to hurt us at every level.
And I love the point that you made, because I view it this way, like if I'm taken care of, then I'm thus going to take care of my family and thus take care of my community.
Absolutely.
Which thus makes everything better.
That's right. Yeah, there's a whole lot of research that's been done on doing micro investments in women's businesses in third world countries. And that's what they find over and over and over and over again. And it's not that men don't do this too, but really across the board, almost completely, this is what women will do. Women will care for their community. They'll care for their family and their community. And it's because they're already often raising children. They're raising the boys and the girls that are going to become the adolescents, that'll become the young adults, right? So they're already very much rooted in the community of their family and the community that they're doing this with. And so when they start to make money, they improve the education program. They improve the healthcare program in their communities. They take care of each other. They help with childcare, whatever. And really, it's the example that we need to follow. Some countries do. Some of our Northern European countries certainly do. I'm Swedish descent, a second generation, a Swedish American, and they've been taking care of each other and their healthcare and their education and all that stuff for a long time, generations, and we see why people, they're the happiest people in the world are our Northern European countries.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, is even just like who I know personally, like in my circle, is, I believe a lot of the women, we reinvest in each other, or we reinvest in our communities. And my husband, I'm so very, very grateful for where he invested his money and how he was able to build this financial safety for us, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very good and intentional with that.
And
he still gave to the community too, but in different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Of what he did there, that helped. But I think, just some ground level, like being able to take care of basic needs, which is sometimes just people being seen and heard.
Yeah.
To what we were talking about is communication. A lot of it is also listening and validating and taking the time to have these hard conversations.
Yeah. I saw a video yesterday, maybe, and it was somebody was taking the video from inside a house, I think. Now I'm not actually kind of sure. Maybe it was they were on the side of the house. But anyway, this person walks up to the front door and tapes a letter on the front door, like a thing like this. And so then they pull back and they show what it says. And it says, "I'm going to the grocery store at 12:30 this afternoon. If there's anything I can bring for you, I'm happy to grab it. Just text me at this number." And then the person was saying, "This is what supporting your neighbors look like right now." And I thought it's a beautiful example. There are things we can do, that help people not feel alone if they're scared, or if they have a hard time getting at resources or whatever. And yeah, it's really nice that you can see that collaboration in your own marriage, how you've both contributed and how that then ripples out to your family and community.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for all the relationships that I have and our accesses to resources. But speaking of resources as well, I know we're going to have the links below, but I definitely want people to know a little bit more, like where they can find your book. And then I'd love to talk a little bit about your retreats that I know you have as well, because I think those are really valuable for people to hear.
Yeah. So my books, you can get them on Amazon, or if you're not using Amazon, which I support, we support people finding their way through however they're finding their way through. Just take the title and my name to a bookseller and ask them to get a copy of it for you, and they'll get a copy for you. So you can get Shameless Parenting on Amazon, or Sex, God, and the Conservative Church. I also say to listeners of podcasts, if there's anybody out there that really wants to do this work, healing the shame that they got from growing up in the US, or any connection, with people who were really shut down or shaming around bodies and sexuality, and they want to work through either book or both books, and they get on Amazon and they say, "I can't really afford that right now. Things are way, way too tight." All you need to do is DM me at my Instagram, which is Dr. Tina Shameless. So DRTINA Shameless. And just say, "This is my situation and I can't afford to get a book right now. I would love this book or this book." And then what I'll do is I'll send a free promo code for an audio version of that book. And I just don't want anybody out there who really wants to do this healing work to feel like they can't because they can't afford it. If you can, of course, that's wonderful, because it helps and supports me a little bit. Not nobody, but I certainly don't get rich off books. But if you can't, don't let that stop you. Please feel free to reach out. So of course you can get me on Instagram I have a website that's that's tinaschermersellers.com. And there's a bunch of free stuff on there. There's what I call the sexual reclamation project. So if you want to go through and see what was the legacy I grew up in, like I've never really thought about it, it'll walk you through how to write your narrative of what it was like for you so that you can see it really clearly in black and white. And then ask yourself, do I want to take this legacy forward or not? And if you don't, then those books are going to be really, really helpful to you. And there's a bunch of other resources. There are also resources on the Instagram. If you're interested in learning more about the work in trauma healing with psychedelics, you can go to inannarising.org. That's my organization that supports and helps those people. We also have a retreat center where we're really making it available for activists and healers, therapists, doctors, whatever, who are out there working every day and really facing a lot of difficult challenges and need a place to rest. And we're on 8 acres, and we just welcome you to come and rest for a while. Walk in the woods, sit outside, listen to the birds, and breathe and try to restore your soul. Because this work is very hard, and we've got to have some kind of rhythm in our life that allows for push and rest, and push and rest, because this is a marathon that we're in. It's a difficult time, and it's something most people who are alive haven't quite experienced in this way, So yeah, those are probably the best ways. I'll also say that we just launched, a colleague and I. We ran, as you were asking about the marriage retreats. Were you asking about those? Yeah. So we run those for a really long time, and the results were so outstanding in people's lives. Like, they literally changed people's trajectory of their marriages and their families and their kids. Like, I'm hearing story now, like 15 years after we started it, of kids that are like doing things they could never have done. The parents could never have done it. And they're just so thrilled to see their kids' confidence and how loving they are and how strong and courageous and clear, like good communicators they are. And it's because they invested in their marriage and then helped their kids in their growing. And now their kids are off in college and stuff. And it's so fun to see. Well, anyway, this colleague and I just launched a thing called abundantmarriage.com. And you can actually go and download an 8-week program that'll take your relationship through the highlights, really, of these retreats. But we also make it so that if you're somebody who really cares about the families in your communities and it's something you can do, you can go through it yourself. We'll even send you a free promo. Go through it yourself and then start groups in your home with, 3 or 4 other couples, or if you're a therapist in your practice or in your church or whatever, start things that support couples, and then those couples will support their kids and the kids will like that. And with people who have decided to facilitate these groups, we actually will do a monthly meeting. Sean and I will do a monthly meeting and answer questions, talk about concerns, whatever. So we're just trying to figure out how to help people who really want to make a difference in their community be able to do it in a way and feel enough support in doing it. So then the retreats run once or twice a year. They're not very often. And they're for anywhere to 8 to 10 couples. And it's Thursday night to Sunday afternoon. And they're just remarkable. They help you get clear about all the ways in which our culture may have inadvertently made it difficult to do a really good relationship. Men who have been hiding their feelings and don't know how to do vulnerability, and women who are reactive and don't understand them and are critical, and like we get into these patterns that you see often, especially in heterosexual relationships, that have been going on forever and they don't know how to get out of it. And it's like, oh, baby, we set you up for this. I'm sorry. Here's what are the things we can examine, and we'll invite you to examine them yourself. And then in the afternoon, we split up, like we do this with heterosexual couples. We split up the men and the women, and we get the men to talk about what we had talked about in the morning. And then we teach them how to touch each other. Like we tell them, you're going to do these different kind of touch exercises in the afternoon in your own hotel room, because we do these at really nice places. And so we teach people to open their hearts and to feel the touch of their partner. We take all the normal stuff, normal common stuff off the table. And we teach on attention, intention, eyes, touch, presence, and then how to actually understand the arousal, like moving with it. And it transforms marriages. Like, when women are receivers and men are just givers, women have often never had that experience where it didn't also become about him at some point. And so when she does, she'll often be like, oh, I've been discounting everything he's been giving me these years because I thought it was always about him. But when he just showed me it wasn't about him and how much he loved seeing my pleasure, I've been getting it wrong all these years. And so her heart softens and opens. He's like, oh my God, this is all I've ever wanted, was just to see you bloom like this. That was the most erotic thing I've ever seen. Forget what porn's been saying. It's been all about having this happen. It transforms everything. And then, of course, you have to continue to practice some of these things. But when people do, their relationships are entirely different from then on. And so that's really what guided us doing, also trying to make things a little bit more accessible too, by putting this other online program together.
You just said the accessible. That was one thing that just kept coming to my mind, is you have all these amazing resources and ways that you're able to help people and expand this in all these different accessible ways that people can get your free resources. They can dive into your books. They can help other people in their communities too by doing this. And that's one thing. I saw such an amazing diversity of how you're able to affect so many people's lives in a positive way and leaving this beautiful legacy. I'm so honored that you took some time to come on the podcast today. This has been amazing to talk, and I feel like we could talk for like hours and hours and hours. I definitely want to give you a chance if there's anything else that you wanted to cover, or if you have some final thoughts. We've talked about so many amazing things today.
Yeah, this has been really fun. I guess that all I would say, and really we've kind of been saying this, but I just want people to know how really precious and beautiful and valuable, like you're more than enough. You've always been more than enough. And if any part of you doubts that, it's really because somebody who didn't know how to do it better for you treated you in some way that invited you to feel doubt about yourself. But the reality is there's never been anyone quite like you who's walked this planet. And the best gift you can give yourself and everyone else is to be fully, authentically yourself, and to see that as a gift to yourself and to the world, and to really learn to extend first and foremost love and generosity and kindness to yourself, and try to soak in that, because everything else comes from that place will be easier than when you're trying to be kind, but you feel like crap on the inside, or you're trying, so, and often a lot of that is shame. So if those books can be helpful in helping you heal that shame or understanding how it got to be so much a part of American culture, great, do that, whatever you can. Yeah, because people deserve so much more joy in their life than they're often experiencing.
Yes, I 100% agree. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you so much. I can't wait to dive into even more of the resources and all that you have available out there. And for listeners, don't forget the links are below. So please check out all the amazing options that are available.
Thanks so much, Jess.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.